Welcome to the Outlaw Radio Show. My name is Zach Adams, and I'm the luckiest guy in the world to be married to a Miss Jessica Adams. I'm the proud papa. Quincy, Theo, and Mabel, and I pastor the greatest church on the planet, Calvary 316, which is located just outside of Athens, Georgia. If you're local, come hang out with us one Sunday morning. Our service is at 10:30. If you're not local but looking for a good Bible teaching church you can hang out with online, we live stream our service. Our YouTube channel is calvary316.live. But you can learn all about the church by just going to our website, which is calvary316.com. I am joined in studio by the man that needs no introduction, the maestro of this dysfunction, Mr. Creighton Vaughn, Pope C, a.k.a.
Hello, everyone.
Reverend Al.
No, not Reverend Al. Pope C, Pope Creighton, cool. Not Reverend Al.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Things are good. I'm living life, loving life. Doing good.
Got a lot of exciting things that we're doing with the Outlaw Radio Show. You want to share just a little bit here, and then we'll introduce Spice?
Absolutely.
Actually, you can introduce Spice when you get to that.
I'll introduce Spice.
Yeah.
So first off, Outlaw Radio is brought to you by a podcast called Get Fed Today. It's a podcast where we release 5 Bible studies a week. They come from pastors from all over. They cover a wide variety of topics. This week we have Bible studies from Zach Adams, our very own, Mike Foch, Pancho Juarez, Paul Lester, and Tony Clark.
You got to realize that is the most diverse group of people.
It is
on the planet.
It's crazy.
Yeah, no, that's quite a lineup. If you can't find something in that group that you like, you might not find anything ever.
Also, we've been doing a lot behind the scenes every week for the last 3 weeks. This will be our 4th.
Yes.
We have done a review of Amazon Prime's The House of David, and we've been releasing those as their standalone videos.
We've been doing it on the show, but you've been cutting them and releasing them.
We've been opening the show with that, and then I've been releasing them as separate standalone videos if you just want to go in and see what we think about the latest episode. We've done episodes 1, 2, and 3. We've got episode 4 that we're going to talk about tonight.
Are we podcasting the audio out as well?
I have not podcasted the audio. Well, we are podcasting the full audio, and that has the reviews on it.
Okay, that has the reviews on it.
So we're not podcasting it separately.
You just split it into its own video. So if you're just wanting the reviews of House of David, you can get those without watching the whole show. It's kind of the idea. Very cool.
Yes.
We've also so Outlaw Radio. This is a live stream show. It's a podcast. You're watching us recording a podcast that gets released Thursdays on Apple, Google, Spotify. But we're wanting to kind of we really want to do some other things with the show. And so why don't you kind of explain just to the audience, the listening audience, the viewing audience, just what we're working on. We're recording things that we're going to be releasing. We're going to keep doing this live on Wednesdays at 8 o'clock, but we're doing some other things. Kind of share a little bit with the audience, just the vision for what we're wanting to do.
So basically we want to just increase the both variety and amount of content that we are putting out, both on the Outlaw Radio Show, and on our church YouTube channel, which is Calvary 316. So one of the things we did tonight was Spice Daddy gave us reviews of his top the first 3 of his top 10 Christian movies.
Let's get Spice. Spice, welcome to the show.
This is Spice Daddy, by the way.
Yes.
What's up, my pepper poppers?
There you go. So explain what you're doing, explain why we're having you do this. Why this is one of the most ridiculous things you've ever done in your life.
Basically, we're struggling to have good content.
So we decided to spin off for you.
Right. I guess one of my little known joys in life is, so one thing I remember watching early teens and stuff was that Mystery Science Theater 3000. And it was basically just the weird silhouettes of these robots and
watching terrible movies,
watching terrible sci-fi movies and commenting on them and stuff. So I've always just
liked bad movies.
I've liked bad movies.
Yes.
That's what got me started. So the Sci-Fi Channel, weird sci-fi movies, I enjoy those. And same with Christian movies and
Christmas movies, and then also Christian
movies and Christmas movies. And I think there's a lot out there that people just throw a whole huge just blanket cover statement of all Christian movies are terrible, and that's just wrong. There are some good solid ones out there, and I haven't even gotten to the golden age of Christian movies, which is now. And
Truth.
There's tons of good Christian content. I mean, we've been reviewing one lately. Just in the past like 5 years, 10 years, we've had some good, solid, like actual Christian movies that aren't cheesy and don't have to deal with horses. And
So
stuff the
basically,
entire time.
like Spice Daddy is going to do like your top 10 favorite Christian movies.
Still working on some names for it, but I think we settled on maybe Spice Daddy's Pepper Poppers, like just a little pop culture little reviews kind of stuff. I think
I like that.
I'm liking it.
I like that a lot.
And just kind of, I'm gonna start off with my top 10 favorite Christian movies of all time to date. There's definitely some more modern ones. I've tried to keep it like, you know, to before 2020, the ones the era that where people consider those not that great.
The Silver Age.
The
You're
Silver
gonna get to the
Age.
Golden Age.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to the golden. Eventually, I'll get to the Golden Age where I'll throw in some like actual movie reviews of more modern ones that are like good production quality and stuff like that. But
So I mean, we're really just trying to lean in and help you move from being a potential up and coming podcast star to maybe being a potential up and coming.
And you know, maybe it'll move from, you know, podcast star to sitcom star. I don't know. We can probably work something out.
Is that the next? That's the next Outlaw Radio project. Is the Outlaw Radio sitcom?
Oh, that'd be awesome.
That would be a lot of fun.
Y'all are out of control. So we're doing Creighton. We're producing some other content that's going to get released all on the Outlaw Radio .live. That's our YouTube channel, and then we'll also be blasting that stuff out on social media as well. So a lot of fun things, having a good time, trying to expand a little bit of what we're doing, and Creighton is trying to make a living out of this, which will be awesome.
That's the goal.
Yeah, that's the goal. Let's get to episode 4.
Yeah.
Episode review. Who wants to
Great
go
episode.
first? So, Just, why don't you give a bit of the synopsis of like what happened in the episode? Or Creighton, you're the
Creighton would be better.
So we've been bagging on you for getting way ahead.
Yeah.
I'm way ahead.
Well, I mean, once I started, I just couldn't stop.
I watched episode 6 this morning.
Oh, he's great.
I'm the only one that stuck to we set out a plan.
Well, okay, so I'm teaching. Here's the thing. I'm teaching through this stuff, and it's been really cool because these episodes have actually lined up almost perfectly.
And I just didn't care about your rules.
Well, that's
It wasn't my rule.
Well, that was my rule, and I build on it.
It's not my fault because they put the first 3 episodes all out at the same time.
I had self-control.
How are you not expected to watch all of those?
No, that's smart. I get it. And typically, I would wait until a show either was done or had at least 6 episodes so that I could
watch all 6.
Yeah, but we were trying to do reviews, so I'm already I'm current. Justin's current. Although I've watched episode 4 twice, so I have thoughts.
So 4 up until this most recent one was my favorite one.
Creighton, give a quick synopsis of it. I find that crazy, but start with a synopsis.
So the episode opens. It's David and Samuel. They're talking about his most recent
His vision or whatever.
The vision that he got when he was being anointed. That's what I was looking for.
The Holy
anointing. The brothers end up talking with the father. They're going to try and hide this. Make sure that nobody knows that David has been anointed, because if they do, bad things will happen.
Which, by the way, like before you bag on those guys,
hey,
Samuel had the same, like in the Bible, Samuel had the same trepidation about going.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
one of the things that I really liked about the episode is after they have this conversation and they're like, we can't tell anybody, David stays away from all people.
Mum's the word. Shh. Go back to the fields, boy.
Immediately after that scene, Joab shows up and he's like, David needs to come with me.
Summons from the king.
Why?
Summons from the king.
I really like that, because that's one of those things that even up until I watched the episode, and we had talked about the fact that this happens directly after the anointing.
Yeah, the timing of it all.
The dots had not connected in my brain that this would be like Saul knows what's going on, and he's calling David to execute.
That was what it would feel like.
That's what it would feel like.
Okay, get back to the synopsis. So
they
he starts to play music for the king.
He's playing music for Saul.
We're getting more of Saul's distressed spirit
We're
thing
seeing
going
a lot
on,
of that. There is a really interesting side plot between Saul's younger son and the laws around premarital sex, which I really enjoyed.
With the tribe of Dan.
With the tribe of Dan. And so that goes on. David has his interactions with Michael kind of blossom. Michael starts to teach him how to read, which I thought was a cool element. I hadn't thought about the fact that, hey, maybe David doesn't know how to read, because why in the world would he? Why would he?
And she reads for him the song of Moses, and he asks, like, is there music to this?
And then he ends up playing it for her and Saul later on in the episode,
and
which
Saul
I
recognizes
also thought was really cute.
And Saul recognizes, like, hey, that's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I thought that was really cute.
And then the episode,
I think that's
the episode
all the major
lands on
stuff.
like a kind of a cliffhanger, because the one son is being taken to a city of refuge, and like
that's right,
something weird happens where
his caravan gets attacked, and some dude's just like, hey, you want to come with me? Or whatever his name is. Are you coming? And then they walk off into the night with the carriage burning.
All his people.
Oh yeah, and the horses. You notice that?
Yeah.
Killed the horses
Poor
too.
Horses. Well, because they would run away with the cart.
Oh yeah, no, it was a good choice.
let me ask you though. I can't help just right off the bat. So like one of the things that was the biggest hurdle for you to begin with was non-biblical storylines, but you just now referenced an entire subplot to the 4th episode that has zero Bible behind it, but you said, I really like that. So where are you now?
He's hooked.
So I am now, I'm bought into the show. I am really enjoying it as a show, like just regardless of its biblical implications and the fact that it's cool that we have.
It's a really good show. Even
it's
if you,
a really good
you didn't
show.
know anything about it, it's well done.
It's well done. The cinematography's fun. I'm enjoying the show a lot. And as a result of me enjoying the show, just as a show, I think that I'm able to be a little bit less
cynical.
I was going to use the word particular, but yes, cynical. I am able to enjoy it more now because I've reframed it a bit.
Yeah,
in my head.
I get that.
I'm no longer looking for direct chapter by chapter.
Bro,
Now that I've removed myself from the expectation of chapter by chapter storytelling, I'm enjoying it a lot more.
I told you
and
that.
I'm able to actually dig into it a bit more and enjoy some of the
nuances that you might have.
The nuances and the allusions to
other things.
Actual biblical stuff.
Yeah, like for example, with that scene, what I liked about it was that like it gave you insight into how the Levitical law would be applied in varying scenarios. And so like the storyline is Saul's second son ends up,
philandering.
Defiling one of the daughters of the tribe of Dan, one of the leaders of the tribe of Dan. So they come and they want him to either marry her, which would join the families together, or be stoned to death according to the Levitical law, which is true. Although I loved how Saul's wife countered, well, you do know that we would also stone your daughter.
Right.
Because, she also committed adultery. But that the ultimate play is that she's sending him to a city of refuge, which is a total biblical thing. Like that's an actual thing.
I really like that because I don't think we talk about the implications both politically and sociologically of refuge cities and what that actually means for a country. And also I thought they did a really good job of showing what that particular passage, I don't remember what it's in Leviticus, that law where it talks about premarital sex and that they're either fornicating and they're both stoned or they get married. I think it's one of the most highly misused. It's often cited by people who are detractors of the Bible, and I thought they did a really good job of showing what it would look like in practice.
Yes.
Which I thought was really cool. I really enjoyed it.
I should just, for some clarity, in case you're watching and you're like, I have no idea what they're talking about biblically. A city of refuge is not the same thing as like in the American context, a sanctuary city where, illegals are basically given carte blanche legal coverage. This was an actual mechanism within Jewish culture for
Retribution, avoidance.
protection.
Yeah.
The overhanded use of retribution, where it's like, okay, a crime has been committed, and yeah, there's consequences, but there are these places where there's a measure of refuge. Again, I'm with you. I thought that was very interesting. I'm very interested on how they're going to take that story, because they leave it. And again, spoiler, but we're through the 6th episode. They haven't come back to it at all. So
Really?
Who knows? Maybe they Game of Thrones is like 3 seasons from now, where you finally get back around to like what happened to him and where he is.
Like, do you guys remember that Saul had 2 sons?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
He comes back around at some point because he dies.
Right.
He dies with Saul. So there was all of that. I did feel like that episode 4 was very similar to episode 2 in the sense that it was character developing. 1 and 3 are like full Bible stories, fun. I felt like 4, which I'm totally fine with. I understand what they're doing, and I felt like, again, they're emphasizing the right things. They're giving backstory to, I think, again, if they do several seasons of this,
They've already signed off for 2.
Season 2's been renewed.
Oh, has it really?
Yeah, Amazon has renewed season 2.
Awesome.
So there's at least that. But like there's a lot of fun things that they'll be able to. I say fun things. It's tragic, but the whole love relationship with David and Michael, like, I love how they're presenting it right now. I think that's completely probably factual, but just the way that narrative will arc over the course of a couple seasons kind of makes what you're watching right now even more heartbreaking.
And it's going to make it really fun to watch fun is again the wrong word. Right. Tragic is the right word, but it's going to make it really interesting to watch on a rewatch after we get to see these 2 grow into who they become.
And that's where I come back to like what I was saying when you were irritated with the first couple, was like, hey, like if they just go on a verse by verse thing, like you're not going to have the depth for the and for the impact of what that story.
Well, I think that's why this was one of my favorite episodes until this most recent one.
Well, we can't go further.
I'm not going into
I have not seen it.
Don't go further. That's 2 episodes ahead.
The character development thing for me is what's drawing me into this, because when you read the Bible, you have to go chapter by chapter by chapter, and you don't see the intertwinings where this chapter and this chapter could be happening at the exact same time, and you don't get that feeling when you're reading, and then you have the underlying nature of just human psychology and things like that are happening. But then just like for me, like the episode 4 is when they really delve into David's musical talent.
Yes, which is cool.
And when I'm reading the Bible, like I've been to Israel, I've seen the landscape and stuff like that, and I've heard what people think the instrument that he played sounds like, things like that. But it's so hard to read the Bible and not understand David as a person. And then now even reading the Bible, I don't get that kind of character development from the Bible.
A lot of the stories are bones.
At least early
yes.
David. Like how does David
less than bones?
Yeah, how does he move from a shepherd of the field to Saul's palace? Like,
and what would that feel like to do?
What would that be like? And
or the circumstances surrounding. Who brings up the idea? How would they have known David? Having Michael had that exposure in Judah.
And how did Saul not know that David was anointed king? All this is coming into play.
Yeah.
In especially in episode 4, you get all of that in it, and this is like over
the plot's thickening.
The plot's thickening, but it's stuff I've read for years and years, and it's over the course of 4 or 5 chapters in the Bible that this happens.
We're in like 2.5, 3 chapters.
Yeah, and all of the, but like all of this is happening in that course, but it's so much bigger than what can fit inside the words of that, and I think they just do an excellent job. Because when I hear David played for Saul, well, what makes him better than another dude down the road? And then you see it in the show, and he's just like, okay.
I get it.
I get it.
Yeah. I completely agree with that.
Then you start thinking about just stuff like going through the Psalms and seeing the like David wrote all these songs and stuff. Like,
why don't you tell the folks what we're doing with the church? Kind of
so like we're going through Samuel and stuff like that, and so we're just now getting into this storyline that we're watching on the House of David, but like David was a poet. David wrote songs, like
over half of them.
Right. What would that look like? Why would, like, I'm musically impaired.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know music. I know it sounds good. I know it doesn't. But like,
that's even suspect.
He likes.
But,
we know your playlist.
I know you like ska.
But I've also like I've taught English and stuff like that. So like poetry and stuff I understand. And lyrics I understand. But to hear like in episode 4 when he plays the Song of Moses, like you read the Song of Moses and you're like, oh, I wonder what that sounds like.
Yeah.
And then for them, is that exactly how it sounded? Like, no idea. But did they do it? Yeah. But did they do a good job in the show? Absolutely.
Which is why I really love the fact that everything's in English, but when he sings, that they kept the singing in Hebrew, because again, the way that the Psalms would read is going to be a totally different cadence. Like it's not
even the melody,
right?
It doesn't work with English.
Correct. For sure. No, I'm with you. So what we're doing with the church is, so we're doing the Harmony of Histories series, but we recorded some tonight. We're calling it the Psalms of Histories. So like any of the Psalms related to these chapters that we're looking at, we're doing like 10-minute, 15-minute videos on those Psalms related to. So for example, where David's a shepherd. You know, he's a shepherd in the field of Bethlehem. He's been anointed. He's still a shepherd. He's going back and forth between the palace. And so there's 4 Psalms that David wrote that would make a lot of sense to have been written during that period of time. So we're kind of like trying to work in to the narrative, like Psalms that are relevant, which I think I'm even more pumped up about it after tonight. We recorded three of them, which was a lot of fun. So for me, here was my big encouraging takeaway from the 4th episode. So I will judge the entire show on one core idea.
Oh, I did from immediately when I said if Goliath isn't exactly
well, that was you.
Yeah,
that's not how I was going to judge the whole show. I will judge the entire show completely based upon do they Sunday school Christianize, whitewash David and make him just the hero? Or do they actually present David as the very flawed, conflicted, tragic character that he is? That's how I'll judge the show. Because if they Christian Sunday school felt board it, I'm out at some point.
I feel like they've already shown his flaws.
Well, so here's the deal. And this is where I was encouraged in this particular episode. There were 2 moments. The first one was at the very beginning where Samuel like puts his hand on his hand and boom, sees a castle on fire. Right? And he says, you know, there's light and darkness. You're complicated. I think he's seeing like the Battle of Armageddon at the end, like the end of the throne. Like he sees not like, or the destruction of Jerusalem under Nebuchadnezzar, or like he's seeing like, hey, your line is going to be fraught with issues. And then there's so David is brought into, to meet the queen. The sorcerer is there and he leaves, and the sorcerer makes some comment about he has light, but darkness as well.
Like Anakin Skywalker kind of stuff.
For sure. Like in that sense. And like, so there were 2 moments, both from Samuel and the witch, both saying almost the same thing, that David is both light and darkness to an extent. And like, I hope that that's foreshadowing into the overarching arc, the way that they'll develop all of this. Because again, if they just present David as this great hero,
They'll miss out on like half of what David is.
I'm reading a book. I read a book by Mark Rutland on David the Great, and like he opens by he was in Israel, and he was working on the book, and some Jewish lady was at a cafe or something like that, and was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm writing about King David." And she looked at him like, "Why would you write about that bloody man?" Like, and that like even the Israelites have they realize he is a hero, yes. And the Bible, like the Bible mentions David more than any other person but Jesus. 1,000 references to the fact that Jesus is the son of David. Again, that's a very complicated thing. I hope, and I got a little bit of an indication that they were that's a little foreshadowing of how they'll play it out.
Speaking of nuance, one of the things that I noticed that you mentioned is that when David is playing the Song of Moses for Michal and Saul, is that Saul recognizes it as the Song of Moses. I thought that was really cool because it would be really easy for someone to do the exact opposite of what you're worried about they might do for David to Saul, which is paint Saul as this complete heathen garbage person who knows nothing about the Lord,
right?
Which he totally isn't.
Well, he becomes that.
Well, yeah,
right.
he has the downward path.
Well, I think you
Saul
recognize that.
Was chosen by God.
Yes.
I thought it was really cool.
For reasons, for noble reasons.
Well, I think you
I thought it was really cool they had him.
you mentioned that in your last sermon on Sunday.
Yeah.
You go, Saul wanted that music because that's what makes him feel good. He wasn't approaching the throne of God for worship. That worship made him feel better about himself. And I think we see a lot. I mean, why in Hollywood movies do they always play Amazing Grace? Same kind of thing. It just makes you feel good, even though you don't understand the words of that song at all.
It's the same reason that people take Jesus' name in vain when they don't believe in Jesus.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there's actually power in the name.
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody says, Buddha, when they stub their toe. You know, they use my Lord's name in vain, which is very, very, like, I think Christians should be way more indignant about that. And I think we're not. Like, you don't see people doing that with Muhammad's name. Why? Because you put a cartoon in there, somebody's going to go shoot up the place. I'm not saying that. But like there should be a reverence, and I think, you know, Creighton, going back to like, and we'll move on, but like what you've experienced, the same thing that I had to go through with The Chosen. Like at some point, you've got to be like, okay, this is not going to fit my expectation entirely, but I got to really appreciate it for what it is, and not for what it isn't.
I have to say one thing I have enjoyed. I've watched The Chosen. And
I enjoy this way more than The Chosen.
I enjoyed this a whole lot. I mean, I think I tried to get you hooked on The Chosen a while ago.
A long time ago.
And this one is
way better.
Way better. It's more accurate and more true to the Bible than.
And that's not a knock on The Chosen.
This has made me think maybe I should go back and watch The Chosen, which my mom tried to get me to watch years ago.
No, you
and
should.
then I never did because I was like, it's.
Yeah.
Well, I think what
TV. Why
I think what this is doing better than The Chosen does is The Chosen leaned more into the unwritten story behind stuff. So they were
reading between the lines.
They're reading, whereas the Bible
in weird ways.
Yeah, where the Bible has. When I saw the trailer for this, I thought Game of Thrones vibes immediately.
Yeah, no doubt.
And I was like, oh, if they do this and follow what the Bible actually says instead of trying to Christianize it, I guess, Sunday school it, like you said, like this is going to be really good. And I think that's the problem with modern Christianity, at least in America, is that we've Sunday schooled the Bible and it just feels like a story instead of this is like actual people, because they're taking into psychology, they're taking into the jealousy, just everything you would see on Jerry Springer, you're seeing in the life of Saul and David and stuff like that. And it's just,
I don't know which Jerry Springer episode you're referring
you know
to.
What I'm saying?
Well, I mean, with Eliashab and the tribe of Dan, that was very Jerry Springer.
Right. But what I'm saying is that was like
1000 BC.
We haven't
Jerry
had
Springer.
midget strippers yet.
Jarius
So.
Springerus.
Like you take the Bible from being something far off and something I can't relate to now I'm like, oh yeah, I fully understand why Saul was so angry and threw a spear at David. Spoiler alert if you haven't gotten to that far in the Bible yet. But like those kinds of things are you look at it and you're like, you watch one episode of Cops and you're going to see the same kind of thing happen.
All right. Well, we got to move on. I will say, to wrap it all up, is that at least I'll say that they're consistent with the stupid bastard child storyline. Like they have
doesn't
not
seem to be going away.
they have not like just rolled that one over.
Did you get an answer on that on your Twitter? I saw
know.
that.
I tweeted out. Greg Laurie was like, "Hey, you're like talking this show up big time. You know, would you care to comment?" And then you like search it. We're not the only ones saying like, "What the heck is this?"
Oh, that's good to know.
Like, no, that's a pretty universal thing from like I was even reading like Catholic websites that were having the same type of like there's just a lot.
They also think that Mary was an eternal virgin. So I mean,
that's neither here nor there. I'm saying we can relate to it. Like even if the Catholics are even like,
Look,
that's
if the
messed up.
Catholics who believe that Mary's an introvert are like, what is it with David's mom in this?
Okay.
It's
but I will give you let me give you one detail that even if they're going with that storyline, they've completely butchered.
even if.
What it's the writing's inconsistent. They don't have, so in First Chronicles, I think it's chapter 2, there is the mention of two sisters. So David had two sisters. Now, biblically, it seems as though that they're older than David. Reason being is that while we don't have any mention of David's brothers being part of his crew, he has three nephews that are ballers. Like the actual Joab, that's David's right-hand man, is his nephew.
Oh.
Like the killer, I'm going to bury the bodies, Joab, is his nephew from one of his sisters. So again, age-wise, that would mean that the sister has to be older to have a nephew that's, you know, a peer or close enough in age to be in the story. Now, in the show, they have a sister, but she's little. She's young, which again, there's not a biblical statement of that, but here's where they're inconsistent. How is she not getting the same type of ridicule that David is? Because there is no mom. So like, wait a second,
she's not allowed to leave the house.
Like, wouldn't she be biologically David's full sister? That she would have.
Wouldn't she have the same bad blood that David has?
But that
if
doesn't.
David has bad blood.
That doesn't seem to. So like, there's a bit of a plot hole.
But culturally, that does make a little bit more sense than David. Culturally, she would have been in the house until she's married off.
Yeah, no, that's not what I'm talking about. The family loves her. The family
true.
loves her. Like she's not like, there's no like negativity around. We're introduced. She's in the house getting the Bible stories with the rest of the family.
Well, David's coming back from the fields.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm just saying that like, that seems like a weird oversight. But anyway, what I want to talk about tonight is I want to talk about friendships. I say that I've got some dear friendships here, but you know, we live in a culture. People are lonely. Like, people are very lonely. There's a lot of causes for loneliness. People are very isolated. There's a reason that depression is rampant in our society. You know, there were already cultural trends that were at play. There was a book, or I think it was a book. It was called Bowling Alone, that talked about the alienation that's been happening in modern society. All of those trends that were happening slowly, but definitely observable, got just put on steroids during a global pandemic where the remedy was further isolation, loneliness, separation. The reality is that human beings are created intrinsically with an innate need for connection, human connection, friends. It's not good for a man to be alone, a partner. And within our society, there is not, I think as the church itself has been relegated less and less regarding having a primary role in culture, because the church would naturally provide that type of thing for a community. Like even if you weren't like a super Christian, the church gave you your place where you could have your kids could play, you could have community connection, friends, etc. We live in a day right now where there are just I think we have an epidemic of loneliness. People got separated in the pandemic. People went to remote work. There's a whole thing with that now, and just businesses that saw productivity from allowing people to work from home. We're now seeing like there's a lot of like real negative things regarding like team concepts. Like there's certain synergy elements of people working face to face, and it's not even on a video. Like there needs to be some type of human connection. Like there have been books written about the power of human touch and like how you need human touch, like where there's something that happens when you give somebody a hug, like endorphins are released, especially like if you're suffering or you're in a tough spot. There is you're not alone, we're in it together chemical, basically, that is transferred upon physical touch and connection. People need friends. If you're out there, like the best place you can find real friends, true friends, is church. That's where it should be. Because there's a commonality that transcends all differences when you go to church, and it's the grace of God that transcends everything that would divide. It gives a unifier. We're all damned apart from Jesus. That's a good rallying cry. Church is a great place for friendships. I am so deeply blessed and lucky that we have the culture we do at Calvary 316, where, I mean, I know a lot of pastors that are very lonely, they're surrounded by a bunch of people. They minister to a ton of people, but they don't have genuine friendships. I am, it's like naturally I'm an introvert. I would prefer to be alone, but I know the importance of being around people. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. Like we are on opening day eve. The Braves have their home opener tomorrow, and I got a brother that's going to come over and we're going to do hot dogs and we're going to watch a ball game. I know that our friendship is as beneficial to him as it is to me. We have a cool thing. We have a brother, Frank, and he does these blasts. It's like, hey, the back deck's open. And I know you both have gone up there. I mean, apart from Jesus, you would have nothing in common with Frank ever. And if Frank, you're watching, you would say amen. You know it. Age, history, life experience. And yet there's this beautiful friendship and community and connection, and people need that. And I say all that to kind of introduce an idea that I want to unpack by looking at some scripture that I think is an interesting thing, is that, like if you look at the life of Jesus and you see that Jesus prioritizes certain things, who's sinless, perfect Son of God, and he prioritizes things for like his own humanity, that you should take notes that if Jesus needed that, maybe you do too. Like for example, Jesus embraced solitude. Jesus found it important to turn off the noise, to break from the minutia, and to get alone and spend time with his heavenly Father. And like if it was important for Jesus in navigating the thing we called life to have quiet time, alone time with the Lord, time in prayer, how much more do we need it? Like you see Jesus do something and it's like, maybe I should do that. That's why Jesus is baptized. Jesus gets baptized not because he was repenting from sin. It's like it was an example to us. Like, hey, you need to do this. Like this is an important thing. There's all kinds of things like that. Like Jesus exemplified I think a real core concept of, I think everyone needs to mentor and be mentored. Jesus was mentored obviously by his heavenly Father, but Jesus also prioritized discipleship. Like he poured into other people, where it was very much you're my disciples. I'm the rabbi, you're my disciples. You're following me. It's my job to prepare you to do what I do after I'm gone. That's the full concept. Jesus honored his mother, you know. Jesus found it important to honor his mother. So should we. What's interesting to me, though, is that Jesus, within this topic of friendships, Jesus had friends. And like, we don't often actually talk about his friends. And in fact, he had friends that aren't apostles. He has friends that don't travel with him, that are just friends, that in fact seem to have secular jobs, seem to be doing their own thing, don't even live anywhere near where Jesus lived. And when Jesus came to town, like, he made it a point to go like bum a room from his friends and make sure that he had time to hang out with his friends, totally separate from like the disciples. Like, we're not talking about Peter, James, and John. You know, we're not talking about, you know, Mary, his mother, or Salome, or any of the other, you know, women that were disciples. That, in fact, we don't have any reference of these three people traveling with Jesus at all, but we have references of them coming to Jesus, of being friends with Jesus. Their names, they're actually siblings. Lazarus, Mary of Bethany, and her sister Martha. There is a couple passages that we can kind of fly by here in a minute, that they jump into the text. In fact, actually, let me start kind of going backwards. Ironically, in John chapter 11, you have the story of Lazarus, where Lazarus gets sick, and Mary and Martha send for Jesus. Jesus tarries. When he finally decides to go 4 days later, Lazarus is dead. The girls are upset about it. Jesus ends up resurrecting Lazarus, you know, calling him forth. But there's a line, like in the middle of it. John 11, verse 5, we're told that Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. We have very little information about these people. One of the other stories that we have, we find in Luke chapter 10. I'll read it. It's just a couple verses. In the middle of Jesus's ministry, like just this random drop. We have now, it happened as they went that Jesus entered a certain village. We would know that village was Bethany from other places. And a certain woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. She had a sister called Mary, who also sat at Jesus' feet and heard his word. But Martha was distracted with much serving. And she approached Jesus and said, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Therefore tell her to help me." And Jesus answered and said to her, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and troubled about many things, but one thing is needed. And Mary has chosen that good part, which will not be taken away from her." Like, this is the first introduction. Lazarus is probably there, or he's on a business trip. They all live in the same house, because if you jump back, John 12. So this is after the resurrection of Lazarus, after all of this. And this is kind of like leaning into the week of Passion. So Jesus will stay at their home in Bethany, and then every day he'll go into the city, do things, come back, go into the city, do things, come back. But we read, then 6 days before Passover, Jesus, this is John 12:1, Jesus came to Bethany, where Lazarus, who had been dead, but who was raised from the dead, lived. There they made him supper. Martha served, but Lazarus was one, sat at the table with them. And Mary took a pound of very costly oil of spikenard, anointed Jesus' feet, wiped his feet with her hair. The house was filled with fragrant oil, and one of the disciples, Judas, who would betray him, said, "Why was this fragrant oil not sold for 300 denarii, given to the poor?" This he said, not that he cared for the poor, a little commentary from John, but that he was a thief. But Jesus said, "Leave her alone. She has kept this for the day of my burial. The poor you'll have with you always, but you do not always have me. You do not always have me." So we have this other story. Now, this account is recorded for us in two other places. It's recorded for us in Matthew chapter 26, It's also recorded for us in Mark 14. The reason I bring that up is that in those two passages, we're told that this was the home. So we already know it's the home of Lazarus, Mary, and Martha, who are siblings. But in Matthew and Mark, we're told that this is the home of Simon the leper, which is an interesting detail. The leper. Now, the irony to that is that we don't have any documented reference of Jesus healing Simon the leper. Now, Jesus heals a bunch of lepers, but we're never exactly introduced to their name. A great example of this, Mark chapter 2, where right after the Sermon on the Mount, a leper comes up to Jesus. If you're willing, you can make me clean. Jesus heals him. We're not given his name. Most scholars believe that because he's called Simon the leper, and Jesus goes into his home, he's no longer a leper, but he's just known as he was a leper. And the only reason that you could have been a leper and now you're not a leper is that Jesus healed you. There was no other way that went down, meaning that most scholars see at some point in time that Jesus ends up healing Simon the leper. Now, he owns a house in Bethany, which is a suburb of Jerusalem. Mary, this very expensive thing of spikenard, very costly, indicates that they were a family of wealth. The fact that Jesus and his disciples would stay with them, but we have no background. We have no background at all. We're left to speculate that at some point Jesus heals this man of leprosy. It would have had to have been after Jesus turned the water into wine, which is the first miracle. Jesus did not perform miracles before that, so it had to have happened very early into his earthly ministry. Did he know them ahead of time? Again, we're introduced to Lazarus, Mary, and Martha, and there is clearly history. There's a depth of relationship. They're friends. They don't live in the same area. How were they friends? The Chosen, the way that the Chosen tries to answer that particular question is that they have Lazarus and them. Basically, they had lived in Nazareth, therefore had grown up with Jesus, and then they had moved to Bethany. Thus, when Jesus would go to Bethany, he had this connection. He knew of them. They were wealthy. It was a place for him to stay. Clearly, they get introduced to us the very first time Jesus goes to their house. Mary's sitting at his feet. Martha's busy serving, and she refers to him as Lord. There's already an awareness and understanding of who he is, that he's not just a normal rabbi, but that he's the Son of God. I bring it up to say I think it's so cool, though, that we have Jesus as friends. They don't travel with him, but they're his friends. By the way, he also has female friends. I think that's worth noting. Non-romantic female friends. Lazarus is his bro. And to the point that even Jesus, knowing he was going to resurrect him, wept. He was grieved. He was moved over it. After the resurrection of Lazarus and everything that would happen, they wanted to kill Lazarus. There's an old church tradition that he ends up moving to Cyprus and plants a church. And there's actually in that particular part of the world, there's, I think, a church. There's some relics that date back, but these people became lifelong friends. Again, I find that so interesting. And if you look at it, as friends of Jesus, one of them was a worker, one of them was a worshiper, and one was a walker. One hung out and was a white walker to an extent. I don't know, man. I just, to me, Jesus had friends, and if Jesus needed friends, don't we? You guys want to jump into this? Throw some thoughts out. Have you ever thought about Jesus having friends?
Yeah, if he was fully human, then it makes sense. I think that's what. This might sound bad. Jesus is fully human and fully God. So to be fully
hypostatic union.
Yeah. So to be fully human, then the psychology and the anthropology behind that had to be there, or else he would just be a demigod that you see in the Greek mythology, where he was just half human and half God, not fully human.
Well,
and fully God.
then Hebrews tells us that he was tempted in all ways as we,
Right,
and yet remained sinless.
And oftentimes, and I think this is where the Chosen does a really good job of bringing the humanity of Jesus into play, where I get to see that. And then when I read the stories, I mean, always go back to C.S. Lewis. He said, friendship is born at the moment when one person says to another, "What? You too?" I thought I was the only one. And how true is that?
That's great.
I mean, like, I have friends that I've known for a long time. But like all my best friends I met at some point along my journey in life, and it was that very thing. It was what you too. You know, for Creighton, it might be like, oh, you like Pokemon too? I mean, it's just like
I can't tell you how many lifelong friends I've made because of my love of Pokemon.
It's one of it's one of those things, and I think that's where you find like clubs and things like that, and that's one of the things where you find friendship in church too. Is like, oh, you're a Christian. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been in and you guys are always making fun of me for this. I've been in another country and I found another believer, and I was like, oh, and
we can be friends.
We can be friends because what I go through, what I choose not to do, because like you understand that. And then I have other people that are just acquaintances, because when I say, oh, I can't do this, it like, you're not going to sit there. What? That's weird. You fully understand the struggle. You fully understand like everything that's going on. And like, how am I supposed to take, Jesus was fully God, but like, that's so comforting to know that he was tempted in every way, but that includes friendship, you know? Yeah. Like,
I really like the idea that him being tempted in every way means that he was tempted to the self-pity and darkness that you get from loneliness.
Right. And I'm pretty sure Jesus had a favorite animal kind of thing. So he and Lazarus probably like butterflies together kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, you're an insect guy, Creighton.
I am an insect guy.
Like, if you met another person that liked insects as much as you do, you have something to talk about. And
breaking news.
Right.
Breaking news tonight on the Outlaw Radio Show, the connection between Lazarus and Jesus is that they both love butterflies.
But
hey,
you know what I'm saying?
It's a good one
like,
to love.
I tend to
Butterflies
think
are great creatures.
You tend to think of Jesus as like
that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
Like, it's this dangerous game we play of thinking Jesus was just this one-track mind person that was so in line. I'm not going to go from here
A to B.
Yeah, and I'm ignoring everything else. Jesus had favorites in life.
Let me throw
he had
a
a
wrinkle.
favorite ice cream.
Let me throw a wrinkle into this that I think is it's worth exploring and discussing. So naturally, just the sociology end of it is that people always naturally gravitate towards those they have the most in common with. Humanity is naturally subject to just the herd mentality.
Birds of a feather flock together.
Yeah, tribalism, birds of a feather, and like in America, I think that's what's been just ridiculous about the last 50 years of American policy, is like we've called that racism, and we've tried to condemn people over that, not realizing that that's just a natural thing. People gravitate towards those they have the most in common with, and the reason is because that's comforting. Like, it's comfortable. It's not necessarily that you want an echo chamber, but like you just again gravitate towards commonalities. It makes friendships easier. It's why you look at your typical high school cafeteria, and you immediately like see the natural sociology of that. Why are skater kids hanging out with skater kids? Because they like to skate. It's why they're not hanging out with the baseball team, because
baseball with a skateboard.
They have two different, like there's two different, the theater kids are not hanging out with a swim team.
That's why it's so hard for me to hang out with a Boston Red Sox fan or a Mets fan.
Yeah, but you can hang out with a baseball fan.
Right,
that
true.
works. So
But it does make it more difficult.
it does. It's why I have a hard time hanging out with soccer people. Because it's not even a sport. It's ridiculous. I don't even know. It's, low on the totem pole.
One of his best friends is a soccer person.
Yeah. We don't have that commonality. I've tried to watch soccer, but
They like the same butterfly.
yeah. But this is where I'm kind of going. So, like, naturally speaking, the best the world offers as far as human connection and friendship is sameness. So you hang it, like, even in the adult world, if you're lonely, you find people that have, like you bowling, like we're on a bowling team because we all like bowling. So we're going to bowl like our commonalities get relegated to, hey, we're, beer snobs and we like the same brewery, or, we joined a cigar club because we all like cigars. And that's like the baseline.
It's the idea of the third place, and the third place is almost always an activity of some kind, because then you can have easy conversation about the activity as opposed to having difficult conversation about anything else.
So exactly. No, 100%. And that's not what we're talking about. Like, that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing because you need connections. But like what I'm describing, so like, did Jesus have anything in common with anyone?
We had to.
Well, I mean, inherently, no, he's God.
Right. He doesn't have anything in common.
He doesn't have anything in common with anybody because he's God. Now, don't go too far with that. Like, I don't want to go down that road. My point is that, like,
I mean, he was Jewish, so
that true.
I can think of a couple things he had in common with the
Yes,
rest of the
he
Jewish
had
people. At least one.
My point is that there is something, though, that what the church offers, what the Christian community, what faith offers, it's something deeper and richer, because it is a friendship, it's a connection not based on some superficial commonality, but like a deep intrinsic like qualifier. Like there's a characteristic, a DNA that brings people together where they have nothing in common but that. And in doing so, and this is my point, is that then enriches the other person's life, because they're then opened up to an entirely different world of thinking and feeling and being that they naturally would have nothing to do with. Like, I have a good friend, his name's Chad. I have nothing in common with Chad. Like, very little. He likes soccer. I don't. He likes the outdoors. I prefer not. He likes long hair. I cut mine short. Again, Chad and I have, like, our personalities are very different. Very, very different. But I mean, I've been friends with Chad since 2004. Like, he's one of my dearest friends in life. And what makes that friendship so incredible is because of the differences. My life is enriched in a way that it could never be apart from the natural connections of friendships, because they don't exist. I get to see the world in a totally different way. I can speak to just this room. Like Creighton, you're my little brother. We have nothing in common.
We have shockingly little in common for people who have been in a relationship like this for as long as we have.
A deep friendship.
Yeah, I've been wondering about this.
Yeah.
Recently, we got golf. We have golf in common.
Yeah.
That is about 2 years now.
Yeah,
maybe.
That took me 15 years to get you to.
See, even with Zach's handicap, like physical handicap that he had, he still
destroys me at golf.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely.
So, but again, it's like, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Like, it is the fact that we would not be friends apart from Jesus that makes that friendship deeper in a way that the world can't replicate that.
Well, I think you get that when the Bible says don't forsake the gathering of believers. So it's kind of a commandment. But B, you're a new creation, so that allows that to happen, rather based on just surface level similarities. Like if all you had in common was golf, that's not a deep enough connection to actually have true
We would be
friendship.
friends over golf, but it wouldn't be meaningful.
So it would be
Right.
if all we had was golf, we would play golf once a year together.
Right.
What I think that Zach is talking about is more the idea that, like, the fact that the only real non-biblical, non-Christianity thing that Zach and I share in terms of common interests is golf. It makes it more special,
But
for lack of a better term.
that's
like,
what I'm
just
saying.
by the virtue of it,
And I don't think
being rare,
I don't think you as a
which I totally agree with.
I don't think non-believers would have that access to that because they're not new creations.
Oh,
They're-
I don't
they're-
think I don't think yeah, and I think
they're beholden to the old nature of tribalism. They're beholden to the old natures of racism, of natural separation since the Tower of Babel to war and to fight and to find those disconnections rather than the connections, where as soon as you become a believer, your heart's changed, your life changed to where it's the only thing that matters is Jesus, and Jesus too. He's my best friend. He's your best friend. Therefore, we can be friends.
It's why there has been a vernacular that has been very characteristic of Christian circles dating back, I don't know, as long as I could historically link, to try to differentiate, like Christian friendships are different and the world doesn't fully understand that. And the way that we try to articulate it is that we refer to people that we don't have anything physiologically in common with. We refer to them using familial terms. You're my brother, or you're my sister. Like you're a father figure. That's a foreign, like those are foreign terminologies for the world to use outside of the actual familial context. But what we're saying is like, hey, like we're more than friends. Like we're actually brothers in the Lord. Like we are part of a family because we share, again, the one thing that runs deeper than blood, biological blood, is spirit. And we are spiritually brothers and sisters in Christ Jesus, adopted children of God, which makes it a completely different ordeal. I feel like, and again, I think that everyone has a longing for that connection. And I think people are craving something like that more today. I think the great appeal to the church is to meet that particular relational need, to speak to that, to explain that. Yes, it's about becoming a new creation in Christ Jesus, salvation, all that, but it's also like you get this community and this family. Like and again, this has just been on my mind because over the last 2 weeks, so I've got like two of my best friends in the world. One lives in Florida now. One lives in Mississippi. They're all still huge parts of our church, support our church. Nate
lives in Mississippi.
Yeah, it's 20 minutes outside of Memphis, but it's Mississippi. Yeah, Mississippi. So
it's in Chattanooga, North Carolina.
I'm so sorry.
Yes.
You said Mississippi, and I was thinking way farther Midwest.
You were thinking Montana.
Basically. All right. Cool.
So a fun fact about Creighton: he knows no geography.
My geography is terrible.
It is terrible. Yeah, Chattanooga was in South Carolina for about 6 months. Ironically, still there. So, but I mean, I was just reminded, like, these are people that I hadn't seen one family came into town. Jess and I went and had lunch with them. And then we went and hung out after. And it was like, my wife and I were driving home. It was like, I feel like I hung out with them last week. Like, it's like there was no difference. Like, it was just like, I don't know how do other people not have these type of things? We had another set of friends come into town. They stayed with us for a week. And you're just like, again, totally reminded of just how blessed, enriched, but how unique it is. Which is why, man, if you build those things, treasure them, safeguard them. They're the most valuable things you own. And there's only two things that you're going to be able to take to heaven with you. It's your memory and it's your friends. And I've got friendships in my life that I anticipate lasting an eternity. And I look around at the world and I see people and there's such a longing for deep connection. I don't even think people know how to articulate. They just know they don't have it. And they're searching for it in all kinds of ways. And a lot of people have just given up. Like, that's even not an option. But Jesus had friends, and we have friends, and we call them brothers and sisters. And I don't know, that's what I want to talk about tonight. That's what I got. You guys got any final thoughts?
Zach said it earlier, but if you didn't hear it or you're just now tuning in, if you are searching for that kind of connection, find a church. I would say first step, find a church, go there consistently. And then
be a friend. Like, don't
be a friend.
Yes.
The easiest way to make friends is to be a friend.
It's on you, not them.
Invite people to lunch, ask people if they're going to lunch. Also, ask if they want help with anything. Because like we had a guy, Randy's son-in-law. Mm-hmm. I do not remember his name. I'm sorry, my butt.
Jeremy.
But, Jeremy, who stayed like 30 extra minutes after the potluck to help us put all the tables back.
Oh, really?
It was fantastic.
I'm getting lunch with him on Friday.
It was great. He's a nice guy.
Getting lunch with him on Friday.
Easiest way, offer to help.
You know
with
where I'm getting lunch with him?
anything. Bistro?
Waffle House.
Waffle House. Invite people to Waffle House. It's a great place to make friends.
Well, I mean,
but yeah, find a church, be friendly, offer to help with things, carry trash. I've made friends many times in my life carrying trash longer distances than I was aware I was carrying it.
Well, I mean, just to emphasize that, I mean, when so after coming back to the States the first time, I was at Calvary for less than a year before moving to China.
Yeah.
It was enough to know you were real awkward.
Yeah. And then coming back, I basically forced myself in. Not that I'm an outgoing person, but I'm introverted and I know that I need that from the church.
And it was during the pandemic. And you're like, dude, I've been here.
Yeah. You're like, I'm here, put me to work. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But find a church, get involved in it. And that's how I can't see my life going any other way other than could I go get a job somewhere else now? Yes, but I don't want to because the friends and family I've made at 316. I mean,
I run down the list. Andy's been 20 years. Chad has been 22 years. Larry, it's been 25 years. I'm 42. Creighton, I've known you since you were born.
Literally born.
I mean, Justin, you and I are going on at least 8 years.
Yeah, give
or take. I mean, I run down the long list of people in my life, and it's like, that's what makes a man rich. And I think our society, we just put too little value and emphasis on that, or the exhortation like, hey, if you have it, I've seen so many people like literally have moved away and their lives fall apart. They got paid more, they did this or they did that. It was a dream. But it was frustrating because they were never able to replicate what they had. Mm-hmm. It's like, I mean, I don't have another 25 years to do that.
Well, I think that's the thing. That's the thing about going to church. Like, what I mean by like force yourself in is like, I didn't just sit back and wait for you guys to invite me out for lunch. I'm like, hey, like, I want to do stuff. I want to be involved.
And, hey, are you guys going to lunch?
Yeah, you're all
I'm
going
pretty
to
sure you showed up to El Real 3 or 4 times and sat at the end of the table.
I might have.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Maybe sat with Quincy and Theo at one point.
Hey, I like
Who
those
hasn't
guys.
sat
I know.
at some
Everybody
point.
starts
But
down at the
it's-
table with my
it's-
boys.
The kids'
the
table.
the one thing I knew we had in common though was Jesus, and that's all I needed.
And hot sauce.
And hot. Well, I don't know. Some people don't like hot sauce as much as me, but
No one likes hot sauce as much
it's
as
true.
you.
But
Well, the
like,
two boys at the end of the table did.
they do, yeah. and so, but that's what I'm saying is like it doesn't take a lot of effort to just go in there, even if you don't have a lot in common. You have the only thing that's important that's in common.
Yeah, that's a great way to say it. Great way to say it. Craig, final thoughts?
Like and subscribe. We do this every week. Find a church. And if you can't find a church, we'll do what we can.
And tell people how they can reach out to us.
Yes. The easiest ways to reach out to us are by text or email. The email, I'm working on pulling it up right now because we're cool and we can put it up on the screen.
While you're looking, let me jump in there.
All right, go for it.
Have any of you guys heard from Walter? It hit me the other day. I had not heard from Walter in a little while. He's our brother in South Africa.
I see him like stuff on Facebook.
Okay, so you have seen that?
I've seen him like stuff on Facebook.
Walter, would love to hear from you. I feel like I hadn't heard from you.
We're talking about friendships.
And there's a lot of things going on in South Africa, and you could you're one of those people. You could disappear from the planet, and we wouldn't know till we get to where you went, and that's heaven. And be like, hey, okay, so that's why you disappeared in 25.
Hey, Walter, I don't know what's going on in South Africa. Is it rough?
Yeah, there's like crazy things going on in South Africa.
I will be praying for you, Walter. I did not know that about South Africa.
Yeah.
I am terrible at that.
Yeah, taking farms, killing people,
Oh, that.
pseudo genocide against the Boer, the white guy.
Well, all right. This is not a time to do a call to action for subscribing. So just close this out.
Jeez.
Yeah, well, the email address, please put up the email address.
Yes.
Again, we'd love to hear from you. popecreighton@gmail.com. If you have any questions about the episode, if you want to share your thoughts about, hey, House of David, we'll share them on air. Or if you want to submit a topic, something that you would like us to discuss on a Wednesday night, please hit us up. Again, popecreighton@gmail.com. Justin, if you wouldn't mind hitting some music, we're going to roll out of here. Thanks so much again for joining us tonight. If you are watching the live stream, check out the podcast. So tomorrow, the audio of what you've been watching will be posted on all podcasting platforms, Apple, Google, Spotify. Obviously, the video of this is archived. It is on YouTube. As Creighton said, you can like, share. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do that. Also, check out Calvary316.live. That's our church YouTube channel as well. If you're listening to the podcast, and I know a lot of people consume primarily through the listening, through the podcasting, check out the live stream. We'd love for you to join us on Wednesday night. Again, Wednesdays at 8 o'clock, we go live on X, Facebook, and mainly our YouTube channel, which is outlawradio.live. Please check out the page. We've got all kinds of fresh content that's going to be being added soon. And if we don't hear from you, if we don't see you here, there, or in the air, then we'll see you guys next Wednesday. God bless.